Hello and welcome to the quick take on Fulhamish, brought to you by My Kind of Cruise. After Fulham's 1-0 just about win over League Two Cambridge United in the Carabao Cup, we're at Craft Beer Co and I'm joined by Jack for this one. Jack, how are you feeling?
Yeah, not great, Liz. But you know what? Job done in the hat. Like, there's plenty to be concerned about, I think, in terms of that performance. But ultimately, we have got through. We've done what we needed to do, and we can all just breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. Is probably how I'd put it.
Yeah, it wasn't the comfortable watch that I think we were all hoping when we faced a League Two side at home, and not a League Two side that is really challenging necessarily at the top of the table. I think it's fair to say maybe an outside shot of promotion this season, but that's kind of where they're at. Very unlike what we saw against Bristol City a couple of weeks ago, when we were just so comprehensively good. Well, it takes us back to before the game then, when the lineup dropped.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I think for a lot of Fulham fans, there's quite a lot of excitement about a certain Brazilian in the starting 11. Is that what you felt?
I think generally, like, obviously it was exciting to see Kevin in the starting 11 and kind of see 90 minutes or 75 minutes of him. But more than that, for me, it was a really comprehensive side. You look at that, and actually one of the things I said before the game was that's a side that would probably just about stay up in the Premier League. And I think when you're putting it in that kind of context, the depth that we have now is really impressive in terms of not 3-4 squads. We're not buying players like Chelsea or Nottingham Forest, but we're buying players that are competing at these kind of levels. And so when you look at that lineup and you're looking at it, you're going, Castagna wouldn't be up. Look, I think actually, I was about to work through the entire lineup. It doesn't really matter. Like, all of those 11 players, if they started in a game in the Premier League for Fulham, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. And so therefore, when you put them all together in that kind of regard, you expect them to therefore be good enough to step up. But equally, there are mitigating factors here to an extent, right? To an extent. And I think one of those is the fact that it must be really weird rocking up to a game. Obviously, Cambridge brought more tonight than they had at home against Aldershot at the weekend. So, that's a bit strange in itself, right? But you're coming up against this away end, which is incredibly vociferous, very loud, particularly inventive, I will add. But, in terms of what you're putting together, and then everyone from the other end of it is split around the three stands, and there's not the Hammersmith End support you normally have because everyone's gone, wow, 25 quid, I might sit in the Riverside, see what it's actually like in a fancy new gaff. And your fan base just expects you to win. It's not a sense of kind of like, oh, we really need to get behind them here. It's just obviously go out there and do a job. And I think it's really bizarre. It must be really bizarre coming into that kind of thing where you're coming up against such an underdog with such a kind of a support that's there, and not just the normal bit of the away end, but pretty much the entirety of the Putney end. It must be a really weird feeling, I imagine, for those players. That said, they've come up against difficult atmospheres before. You would have expected them to put it together a little bit more cohesively tonight, even if they haven't been together for too long. And my brother made a really good point in the game. He was like, they should be used to playing with each other. They should be playing the starting 11 training every day. But it really didn't look like that from where we were standing, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that first half really underlined that. I think like any Fulham fan would be hoping and expecting to go into half-time with the game already put to bed and Fulham 2-3 up.
Or just to have stepped on it a little bit, right? Like, it's not even... look, I think that sometimes we do a disservice to the pyramid of football by talking about as in, like, Fulham should go and win 6-0. Look, okay, Brighton went and won 6-0 away at Barnsley tonight. But at the same time, like, you come up against a team, as you say, and actually I think this is maybe interesting. You made that point about Cambridge being kind of like on the verge of maybe challenging for promotion, but not like expected to be in those kind of grounds.
Yeah.
And look, I'm speaking of that from a perspective of not all that much knowledge, and I will absolutely happily accept that. But I think the kind of general consensus was, a playoff push would be a really good season, and therefore, is it harder to play against the Cambridge side who like, you know what, we're not going to get relegated. We've got playoff push, but we're going to play kind of first team here. This is a team that knows each other really well, as opposed to what we had last round, which was a B team Bristol City side, because they are on the verge of kind of making that playoff push. And so they were disjointed as well, and it felt like Cambridge were really, really well organised tonight, really well put together. Obviously, it's Neil Harris. We know exactly how he's going to play. But it was a very, very solid team that Fulham found really difficult to break down. Part of that is our own fault. We were really pedestrian, and I'll come on to that in a bit. But, as opposed to playing a team who are kind of one eye on something else, who are a bit higher up the pyramid, the Fulham kind of B team, that's a nonsense statement considering who was on the pitch, but you take my point, maybe found it a bit more difficult against sides who are drilled and organised in the same kind of way. That doesn't necessarily excuse how they played.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, but I do also think, I don't think it's disrespectful of the pyramid to point out, I think we should have. A Premier League team should always wipe the floor with a League Two team, considering the difference in resources between the clubs and what our players are earning in comparison to what the players of Cambridge United are earning. I think it is one of those things, resource-wise, we should be performing like that, and I think that was the concern, throughout the first half. So little happened. We can probably come on to the goal. A nice finish from Emile Smith-Rowe. Obviously, it felt the whole time it had been coming, but also it did feel like a goal for Cambridge could have come, and there were some very, very nervy moments especially towards the latter half of the game with the Putney end. A nice finish. Do you have anything to add?
I thought Emma was excellent in the second half. I thought in the first half he was one of the very few players, and look, there's maybe something in the fact that we could have probably substituted 8 players at half-time. If this was a pre-season friendly, and I don't mean that in terms of as if you had freedom of the substitutions, I would have made 7 changes, and that's not great. In terms of what they were putting together, it was a good goal, and actually I thought Emil earned it. I thought he was one of the few players who, over the course of his time on the pitch, put it all in. It didn't all work in the first half. I thought he worked really hard with very little reward. He kind of ground it out. And look, there'll be plenty of people, and I'm involved in plenty of group chats where people were like, what's Smith-Rowe doing? The only thing he's done is score, etc. I thought that was harsh. I actually thought he knitted things together quite nicely. Just everyone didn't feel like they were on his wavelength. And if there was one player on the pitch in the first half who I thought embodied a bit of what Fulham were trying to do, it was Smith-Rowe. So, I think the fact that he got the goal was probably justice for him in that regard. Maybe he hasn't done. I really did think he'd get 60 minutes today because I thought he might start at Villa at the weekend. I thought they might just make that change, and he probably hasn't done his chances of starting the world of good with the performances he's put in, but I did think that of a very disjointed team, he looked the one most likely to make something happen, and so I was glad it was him. Yeah, it was a good finish. To be honest, we were probably slightly unlucky that the first shot didn't go in. It was a really good save, but really to make something of it and make sure that it goes in the secondary is important, and ultimately he did that, and it's guided together, and we needed something to happen. But I thought that Fulham felt like they had the rocket from Marco at half time, and the start of the second half was so different to the sort of 15 minutes that preceded half time, where everything was so slow that actually I was glad that there was a reward for actually sparking the game into life in the second half.
This Fulhamish Quick Take is brought to you by My Kind of Cruise, the world's first cruise booking app and website. And what better escape from the upcoming cold winter months than escaping on a sea voyage? Sun on your face, drinks on tap, and you don't even need to miss a Fulham game, as most cruises actually show all the Premier League matches, even the 3 p.m. ones. My Kind of Cruise has unbeatable prices, and you can pay deposits as little as £1. So whether you're a seasoned cruiser or thinking about your first voyage, go to My Kind of Cruise, founded by a fellow Fulham fan. Download the app now from the Apple or Google Play Store, or head over to mykindofcruise.com and make sure you use the code Fulhamish at checkout for an exclusive discount.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that we did look more impressive in the second half than we did in the first, but it was a low bar, and there was a change. And obviously,
Bar was on the floor.
Bar was on the floor, yeah. I mean, Villa is also still 6 days away, so it's not. We got quite a long gap for playing a midweek game. We have got a long gap until that one.
And they play on Thursday.
They do, so I mean, it's Villa Park. We always lose, but you do never know.
Separate point.
You do never know. Were you sort of my feelings coming out of this one is I'm feeling, obviously it wasn't a great performance. I think at this point in the season I am much more concerned about performances than results in the league, generally, depending on, loads of caveats to that.
Yeah. In the league, agreed.
Yeah, but for this, I was just so pleased that we're in the hat for the next round. and you know, the dream of lifting the Carabao Cup, which ultimately is like, I think what we all dream of, is still
or just
on.
Wembley, right? Like,
Yeah, but I would, you know, I mean, if we get there,
put yourself in the conversation.
Yeah.
I think is the thing, and you know, you get to a cup final, kind of anything can happen. Look, you come up against a rampant Liverpool or you know, rampant Arsenal in a cup final, then you can accept those things. But put yourself in the conversation to be able to have those conversations. And the things that I was frustrated about tonight, right? So there's a couple of different bits. I am pleased ultimately that we've got through it. We're in the hat. We kept a clean sheet. I didn't think that Cambridge fashioned any huge chances. And there were moments, but not like, it wasn't anything repeatable. It wasn't like we were being probed and there were weak spots. I thought the defensive line did quite well. I actually thought that Issa Diop and Jorge Cuenca were probably two of our better players on the day. And therefore, if you're looking at it from that perspective, the defence have done a good job. They've done exactly what they set out to do tonight. They've kept the clean sheet. They were relatively composed, I thought, in possession. I was frustrated in the first half a lot by Adama. And I know he got a strangely bad reception from the away fans, which
I don't know what that's about, but like, if there are Cambridge fans watching this, hi. But also, could you let us know why? Like, did he play for a rival, or like, why were you?
The long-standing Cambridge United-Barcelona rivalry might have come into play.
I think they're on a similar level. But yeah, I was also really confused about why he was getting such a bad reception.
I have no idea. I think there was a shout early in the game against him for handball, which wasn't a handball, and I was right behind it because I was in the Riverside.
It feels weird to boo, but
it worked because he was terrible, right? And like there was, you know, there are some days where Adama was incredibly frustrating, right? But like, you know, what you expect from him is to be able to kind of turn up the physicality in those kind of moments. And you know, when you're being given, you know, abuse feels harsh in this regard. Like it wasn't abuse; it was just being booed by the opposition fans. Like you expect someone of that quality caliber background to step up, and he just really didn't. He was outpaced at one point, which really frustrated me. But and like, this feels like sacrilege to say this, but I thought Fulham's biggest problem tonight was Tom Kenny. I thought that the TC was so incredibly pedestrian every time he got the ball. I felt that there was no passes in front of players. He wasn't the only one, but it just felt like he slowed the game down in moments where it really wouldn't be. And look, I absolutely adore the man, but it just didn't feel like his day today. And you know, when you're looking for someone to sort of step in and dictate in a game like that, it didn't really feel like he ever got control of it. And I'm not quite sure why that was. You know, whether there was something in there where he was double marked. I think with Kevin, where obviously there was frustrations with his performance, it felt like it had been, you know, the Cambridge United defenders have been told, double him up because he's not going to lay it off because he's quite a soloist. And that's okay, but he wasn't able to kind of get into his rhythm or anything like that. I thought the Jedi felt subdued. But in terms of the player that I really was like, I'm expecting you to step up. And we've seen it from Tom so many times in these cup games where he's the guy that's like, cool, this is my game. And in the Bristol City game, for example, I thought he was the best player on the park. Like the way that he was able to just open that game up. It just felt like everything was a little bit off the pace today. Everything was a little bit behind another player. I'm sure he'd be the first to say the same, right? I'm not sitting here being like, I'm pulling up trees in terms of any sort of analysis. But I really did think that where I expected him to kind of jump on and really kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck, he failed to do that. I thought the player that did was Josh King when he came onto the pitch. And suddenly Fulham looked bright, they looked sharp, they looked like they were making things happen, and that's the kind of talent I think we have on our hands. And look, I'm not calling that because of the game against, as you say, League Two opposition, but I thought that suddenly it looked like Fulham opened things up in a different way, and that was exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I did think Josh King's cameo was very impressive today. So we're in the hat for the next round. Unfortunately, quite a lot of league teams that we would have liked to have especially gone away to have exited the cup in this round of fixtures, as you'd expect, but there are still a few left. Do you have a dream draw to finish us off for next time?
Dream draw? Maybe Wickham away. They got a good win today. That'd be fun. It's close enough. We can do that. Like, I would like it to be simple, but if you're going to give us a more difficult game, then I feel like Wolves are punching above their weight in this competition. give me Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Cottage, ideally.
I don't think we want to be. I just feel like there's some bad vibe there. If we play Wolves, I just feel
Wickham,
like
give me Wickham at Adams Park.
Yeah, I mean that's what I want as well. This was my dream draw already, so we've already had
you're
it.
done. You're done for this
I'm
year,
finished.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, I've already had all the luck. Jack, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you, Elizabeth. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for watching the Quick Take. Please let us know what you thought of the game in the comments, and let us know who you're hoping that we face in the next round. And the boys will be back tomorrow with the Thursday.
More from me.
More from Jack, and some more from Sammy. Until then, come on, you eights.
You eights.